Hey, it's CC Strong with Code3 Conversations, and we'd like to invite you to join us in this discussion. Why Code3 Conversations? Because we need to have the hard talks that we're only having in comments on post. We're not actually hearing each other. We're just pointing fingers from community over to law enforcement and vice versa. You've heard it said that people say, hey, I back the blue. And then you have people saying, hey, the blue, they're out here doing some things that are not so good. We've had some recent things and verdicts in the courts behind excessive force. Having worked 30 years within the profession, I know that there are good and bad internally and externally on both sides of those arguments. But we don't get to something better until we actually start doing better. And it starts with a conversation. Well, if you notice, there's someone else that's on the screen with me, and he happens to be my husband. The reason and the foundation for Code3 Conversation bore out of me being politically targeted when he ran for sheriff 4 years ago. Full circle moment. He is back in that whole arena and running again. So, yes, I'm going to put in a plug for him, absolutely, because I've been able to see firsthand what this man is capable of. And I appreciate the work that he has put in as a law enforcement officer. So, if you live in LA County, hear me clearly, there are over 45 police departments within the county of Los Angeles. Just because you have your own agency and chief, it does not mean you don't get to vote and have a say for the Los Angeles County Sheriff. So I'm going to say it and I'm going to scream it from the mountaintop. Strong, the number four, sheriff.com. That's where you need to go in order to support. But anyway, here at Code3 Conversations, we actually pick topics that are either from comments from people or from our own experiences and some of the stories that we actually discuss here. Well, today we have three topics for you, and I have a special person here who was not able to be in the studio, but he is out actually speaking this evening. He's going to be speaking on stage about this very thing. We want better and we want change. So we have the riots method. Yes, you heard it correctly. At Code3 Conversations, we believe in respect. So we ask that you be respectful if you're sharing, for people to have integrity with what they're actually sharing. If you're telling a story, let's make sure that it's something that is true, that you be open-minded and be willing to share and listen and understand other people who have things to share and their opinions, and also to be truthful in that sharing and transparent as you know to be. And lastly, share from your heart. So I'm welcoming in Eric Strong, who I was teasing because he's on the road, but he has dropped in to actually start this whole thing with me and kick it off. And I have my team here with me as well, so I want to shout out and thank them. They are going to be dropping things in the chat. Feel free to drop anything you want to discuss or add to the conversation in the chat as well. So welcome in, Eric. How are you today?
Hey, what's going on? I'm glad to be here. I am doing well. It's been an amazing, productive day. And as you said, I'm on my way to another event to talk about some of these challenges that we're having and some changes that we can make. So I'm here. Let's do it. Let's kick it off.
Love it, love it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually share my screen with all of you, and we can get started with the first topic. Drum roll. Let's see what it yields. Code3 Conversations, ego, command presence, and being the cool guy. And it says guy. I guess you could take that off and put girl. Not girl, but women, those that wear the uniform as well. But when I hear ego, ego is basically your self-worth or your feeling important about yourself, which there's nothing wrong with that. Let me be clear. Command presence is us in uniform, projecting out and letting people know that they can trust in us and believe in us and letting them know we are the authority on the scene. Some people get that a little twisted and they think authority means I've got to have that heavy hand in every situation, which is not the case. Sometimes it's being a good listener so you can help people vet through their life problems. And then also being the cool guy. It's like those ones that actually don't put us in the most favorable light, not the real cool guys who are actually cool, but the ones that are like, I'm one of the exclusive or those that are disconnected from the fold. So, Eric, when you think about ego, command presence, and being a cool guy, what are those thoughts that pop into your head?
All of those, all of the above. Listen, what pops into my head is that it's very true. Um, Many people really don't know who they are until they get that job, until they get that uniform, until they get that badge. And then that becomes their identity. And when that becomes your identity, and I remember this, 30 some odd, 30 plus years ago, one of the academy executives, he said, I remember him saying, do you know who you are without this badge? Will
Mm,
you know who you are without this uniform? And what will happen to you if for any reason you no longer wear the uniform? Will you be okay? And it was very interesting when he was saying it when I was 23 years old, and I was like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, I know who I am. I'm Eric Strong. I mean, but throughout time, I started realizing and seeing what he was talking about. Um, so with that, if you don't know who you are and that uniform and that position identifies you, then when you put it on, it's like your ego comes up. It's what I found out. It's those people that typically allow their ego to get in their way, and they think it's command presence, but
mm,
it's not. Command presence is just that presence. Sometimes it's being the quiet one, sometimes it's just sitting there listening, sometimes it's being the authoritative one, but that shouldn't come based on the do what I say because I told you to, because I'm the police. So we see the ego thing when somebody asks a question and a cop says, well, I don't have to tell you that. I don't have to answer that. Or they ask a question, they say, don't worry about that. Just do what I tell you. Um, yeah, I think the ego thing is very, very common in this profession. And it really gets in the way of a lot of good contacts and communication that could be so much better if that ego wasn't there.
And so for me, it calls to mind just the ability to talk to people. And I wonder how many people who lean to being the cool guy on the bad side of that, where they're telling them, I don't have to tell you that. I don't have to answer you. Is it fear? Is it that you don't know what the answers are to the questions that are being, posed to you? Did you just pull this person over hoping to find something to attach to? Okay, aha, yeah, I'm going to be able to get a stat out of this, and, a statistic or, get an arrest or something out of it. Are the people leaning into really understanding how to communicate? Or are they deferring to the uniform wearing them, which is what I say? Some people wear the uniform, some people are worn by the uniform. And by that, their whole entire existence is wrapped into that gun belt, badge, uniform. The way that they dress changes, the way that they interact with people changes. And it's not the change at having been a drill instructor on campus. That's not the change that we want people to see. You're putting on an awareness hat. You're becoming the gatekeeper, the guardian, the protector, the servant leader, because servant leadership is huge. There is absolutely nothing wrong with serving people. People almost have it in their mind that I'm bowing down to you. I'm kneeling before you. I'm giving up my safety. Here, take my gun, take my badge. You can just do whatever you can, and I still have to bow down to you. There is a strength and a huge need to have accountability, not just internally, but also within the community. Hence the whole point that law enforcement is there. But some people have been steeped in the mindset that I am like they say, I'm the gunslinger. I want to be accepted. And I think some of those cool guys are doing what they don't want people on the street doing. The same
Mhm.
things that they're accusing the people on the street of doing, they become that. But now they become that, and it is very dangerous because they have the authority within a split second to take someone's life. Um, One of the most recent cases that come to my mind is the Sonia Massey case. Horrible. That video, to watch it, it was like, what threat at that moment did that officer really feel? Like, what if I were to ask him and I was sitting across from him as a fellow officer, what did you feel? And some
Mhm.
people would say that's so soft, why do you care? It was just wrong, whatever. But I would really want to know if he could answer the question. And what would he give? Would it be a justification? Would it be remorse? Would it be that, hey, it is what it is? We are out here doing the Lord's work? Because some people use that term as well to justify
He's
some
he
behaviors.
it's going to be a justification because he's already convinced himself that what he did was okay and right at that moment. So it's definitely going to be a justification. You know,
Understandable.
I can almost promise you, and I don't know, but I'd be willing to, bet a dollar to a donut that he wouldn't come out and say, I shouldn't have done that. I overreacted. There was nothing. Bias got in the way, or whatever. I don't know, but I often see, oftentimes, law enforcement defending law enforcement because it's law enforcement. Period. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily make it any more right just because you say, well, we have a tough job. We do. That's why we get
Mhm.
paid and we get trained to make tough decisions. When we make a bad decision, that doesn't mean we justify it. Doesn't mean that we try to write it right, as one of my favorite sayings. You know, but yeah, that ego thing and that yeah, I'm with you. It, it's the ego that keeps us from saying things very simple, such as, hey, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Something very simple, something that we learned to do in kindergarten, something that our parents taught us to do when we were kids. Hey, you bumped into somebody. Hey, you stepped on somebody's foot. Hey, you know what I mean? You accidentally knocked something over. Just say you're sorry. You do something, you're mistaken. You pull somebody over thinking that they are somebody else. Say, hey,
Hmm.
listen, I'm sorry. You know what? I put this is why I pulled you over. I see that you're not the person. I'm sorry that I stopped you, held you up from picking up your kids, made you late for going to work. Boom. Let me get you on about your day.
Yeah.
Many of them can't do that.
Absolutely. And I think I always say the term, it's not punk, it's practical. If you can talk someone into what you need them to do, or the power of persuasion, or getting them to understand, even that, something as simple as saying, I didn't bring myself here. If it's on a call, this came out, this is what happened, this is what brought us here, and now we're in this position. Where do we go from here? If the elements of the crime are there, they get arrested. If they're not, there's basically, okay, find out what happened. Your reports should back up what took place. You should be thorough in that delivery, and it shouldn't be what, quite honestly, I'm gonna just say it. I used to have some people that would walk around with a cup in their hand, spitting in it, and you know what I'm talking about, because they called it dip and snuff when, in the South, that's the way I heard it when I was a kid, but they're chewing tobacco.
Right.
What image does that give? Is that command presence? Is that your ego? Is that you being a cool guy? Is that a habit you just can't control? And then what are you showing the younger people that are coming behind you? Um, One of my pet peeves being a drill instructor was the way that people wore their uniforms. It's like, it's not cool. And you've also often said this. It's not cool to have your uniform look like you've been sleeping and rolling around in it. Your boots
Right.
to look all scuffed up like you've been up under a car working as a mechanic. So I guess if I was asking you one last question about this particular topic, I would ask you, what messaging would you give to all people in LA County Sheriff's Department internally about being the cool guys, about their command presence, about their ego? What would be your expectations of those people?
Of the actual deputies?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I would say what our kids tell us all the time is you look like you're trying too hard.
Mm.
And the reality of it is just be a person, just be a human being. You're a human being that's been hired and given the authority and the responsibility of a position, but it doesn't stop you from being a human being. It doesn't make you a robot. And just treat people how you would want to be treated. If you're walking down the street, well, let's go back for a minute because I want to talk specific to deputy sheriffs,
Got it.
specific to deputy sheriffs and not law enforcement. As you well know, within our own organization, we have deputy sheriffs that won't talk to other deputy sheriffs because they don't work the same station or they don't work the same floor. And so what I would say to deputy sheriffs is, where did that come from? My if I were to say anything, I'd be asking a question. Somebody explain to me how you went through the same academy, you wear the same uniform, you did all the same training, but because you somehow got assigned to East LA station and somebody else got assigned to Cerrito station, all of a sudden there's this level of this barometer of different or better. That's what I've never understood. And I would my conversation would be questioning and then honestly just tell them, just stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop it. It's ridiculous. It's silly. Honestly, to me, it's embarrassing to the organization, especially when other organizations call it out and speak to it and tell you, it's
Yeah.
like, hey man, hey man, what's up with those deputy sheriffs, man? What's up with those guys? You
Yeah.
know, yeah, I would just, the conversation would just be stop it. Just be a regular person and, stop following whatever somebody in front of you showed you and taught you and, they convinced you that it was cool. It's not. Yeah, that's what I would
Yeah.
say.
Absolutely. And it calls to mind I had a core team that I worked with when I was a drill instructor on campus. And there was one particular person that ended up like on loan to my core staff. There were kind of the same staff members for each group or each time I had a class. And during that time, uh, what was I going to say? Your picture threw me off. During that time, I actually had someone loaned in on the staff, and he would do competitions. Stay with me on this. And I'm not saying someone's name, but I'm telling the story. He would have the recruits that were in his platoon pick colors and flavors of Gatorade. And then whoever could guess his favorite flavor would not do push-ups. I'm not making this up.
Yeah, I believe you.
This is the same person that honestly, another true story, slammed the door in front of me because we were actually arguing about the fact that he was catching the recruits off guard. They're standing there and they're finding out about their test at the moment that they didn't pass. And I tell them, hey, relax. I got your back right now. I got your six. You don't have to be worried about someone coming up to you and doing anything. And I know we teach safety, but this is a serious time. I need to present to you. And there were probably about 3 or 4 of them that didn't pass the actual written test. Lo and behold, this person walks in, knows what I'm doing because you can clearly see I'm presenting them with their testing material, which we all kind of knew, unwritten rule. And he snatches 2 of their guns. They didn't respond fast enough, but I had just told them, hey, power back. This is a serious situation. And he and I had this discussion back and forth. And as he's going to go out of the door after I shored up everything with the recruits, he slams the door to try to keep me from coming out of it. It lends to what you're talking about when you say how we treat each other internally.
Can I add to
Luckily,
that real quick? Can I add to that
mhm,
real quick?
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
I know exactly who you're talking about. And there's two incidents. That particular individual would walk around and tout the station that he worked at and how cool he was. But the reality of it is that they basically ran him out of that station because he wasn't a worker. He wasn't somebody that they respected. But so a lot of and we're speaking to deputies, right? Oh, they
Wow.
live off a reputation. And I know firsthand from people that talked to him, was like, yeah, kind of the reason he wound up over there at the academy was kind of like, yeah, dude, you don't belong here. You're not the person
Wow.
that you're presenting yourself to be, but we recognize it. And then there was another guy that I worked at that same, because I worked at that station. I worked at that station and I supervised another deputy that probably spent most of his time IOD. Then he
Mm,
spent another good portion of his time light duty. Then he spent another portion of his time doing what we call SCAR reports, right? Which, are the suspected child
hmm.
abuse or the,
Obvious.
suspected elder abuse. In other words, you're not really, I mean, it's very important work, but you're not really doing what they call the cool cop stuff. You're not out there chasing people. You're not, I mean, I'm sorry, I got a gnat flying. If you see me freaking out, it flew. um, yeah. But he then promotes and goes to another place and he talks about, oh, yeah, I work this station. I work this station. Be hard. You got to be hard. You got to do this. And then what happens is people come behind him, such as myself, and they say, hey, what are you talking about? You didn't do anything. You were what we call a slack. You
Mm,
avoided work. You ran from it. You allowed other people to do the majority of it and you dumped on other people the majority of your time out there. But guess what? You can say, I worked that station, I was assigned there, and everybody thinks that that's the cool station. And so they're kind of living off of a false reputation.
mm,
So, I'm just saying that, and unfortunately, when you're kind of reinventing yourself in front of the new people, they don't know any better.
yeah,
They don't know any better, and it's the
absolutely.
same thing. You know what I mean? So, um,
And there was a similar, I don't even know if you're talking about the second guy that you were talking about. I don't even know if that person is the same person I would later work with.
yep, it is.
And
Yep, I
oh,
already know
as
where
a
you're going.
sergeant.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And he basically would go into these uh, briefings with the young deputies, and he would tell them about, if someone kicks out of a window in a black and white, then that person needs to go to the hospital. In essence, like beating them because they broke out a window in the car. I then had to kind of unwrap that, unpack it, and back that up and say, don't do that. So it's like a clash of two supervisors sitting there. And this guy would later literally go to prison. I think it was 8 years that he got for beating someone who was at a visiting center, visiting one of their loved ones in the jail. So it's interesting that you have the backstory of what they actually truly were while they were working at the station. I guess you're muted,
Oh no, I was just co-signing to what you said. Like, yeah,
shaking in your
nothing.
head.
Yeah, they didn't do
Yeah,
anything.
absolutely. So, what we're going to do, if you're good with it, on the flip side of that, shout out to all the cool guys who really are. And guess what? They're making the arrest. They are taking people to jail when it's necessary. They are making the punishment fit the crime and not the punishment before the crime. They are taking care of people. They are responding to calls and helping people with life struggles that aren't necessarily arrestable offenses, but things that they need someone else there mediating. They are learning the job so that they can then reach to others and be help. And most importantly, they are not shaming and tarnishing the badge. They're wearing it with pride. They are wearing it showing what we are supposed to do and how we are supposed to be. And when raising our hand and taking that oath includes all of it, not just the cool guy and the arrest and things of that nature. So,
Yeah, I just want to add to that. You just wrapped it up at the end, because you started off saying, like, they're taking the people to jail, but being the cool guy is also understanding that jail is not always the only solution to every problem. Being the cool person is being able to talk to a kid, being able to talk to an elderly person, being able to even talk to somebody who's irate, upset, emotionally charged for whatever reason. And jail is not the only answer. That's not all we do. So anyway, I just wanted to add to that. But yes, you're right.
yeah. And you say that, and I agree because that's why we have the largest mental health hospital in our jail downtown, Twin Towers. I can remember working there, and there were a few floors that had the inmates that were suffering mental illness on a serious nature. And now it seems like almost both of those towers are full, from what I know. So, what we are going to do, we're going to move on to the very next topic, and we're going to see what the next big challenge is. And for this one, it is challenges that include large workloads, mandated overtime, and staffing shortages. We often hear from podiums and announcements about staff shortages and the fact that we don't have enough people to work the positions. We hear about overtime work, overworked deputies. Unfortunately, we've had actually, unfortunately, deputies who have taken their own lives. The number that I last knew was 13. Not all connected to this, but some actually probably were so stressed out because guess what? They don't feel like they can actually speak out. They're just showing up for their shift and doing double shifts and being drafted and having to stay there. But I can tell you from firsthand experience, the fact that there is no real accountability and a stepping back and finding out what resources we really have, what positions are really necessary, and where we can reallocate things. That would be huge with how we could combat the staffing shortages that have us in a chokehold every time we're actually discussing why deputies need help. Let me be clear. When people say they back the badge, they back the blue, I do. This platform is not to actually make everything pretty about wearing the uniform, but to actually have those conversations where we speak about the truth. There is no disputing the fact that people are crying out, commenting, throwing rhetoric, throwing their opinions and ideas out there, but there's nothing to bring it back full circle. It's like the people who are suffering with mental illness. If you are just ignoring the fact, we lose too many people because they feel like they have nowhere to go. There's no outlet, no platform, and in this case, no light at the end of the tunnel. So, my message right now is for those deputies who are overworked, who are not appreciated, who are not explained and told or given the explanation and told that they matter, that the work that they're doing is worth it, that just because they've been on for a few years, they're not just thrown away. And I put that in the lap of the executives within the organization, not caring enough about their people. Maybe if caring enough to listen, like we were talking about when we were speaking about the cool guy, maybe if we cared enough to listen, we'd actually find out so much more. I am not sure if Eric has actually jumped on at all, jumped off. He is actually at
I'm here.
he's actually at an event, and hopefully he's going to be able to continue to talk with us about the challenges and the large workloads, the mandated overtime, the staff shortages. What do you say to that?
I have two words:
Mhm.
failed leadership. That's really what we're talking about. And that's what's causing all of this. See, the worst employee wellness program that you can have is failed leadership. And that's what we've had for a very long time. That's what we continue to have within the sheriff's department. And when you look at 13 employee suicides in a matter of a couple of years, you have to ask yourself, what is really going on? You just have to. And the reality of it is that there's a number of things going on. Employees are not feeling valued. They're being overworked. They're depleted emotionally, physically, mentally. And when you're losing such a large portion of your workforce, and you're just adding more and more work to those that are remaining, here's what people don't realize. If I have 2 days off a week, and there's 4 weeks in every month, and I only have 8 days off, but I'm mandated to work 8 to 12 overtime spots a month, mandated. It's not it's not like, oh, I'm just out here to get the money. It's mandated. Employees can't see their families. They miss their kids' baseball games. They miss the dance recitals. They're missing the birthday parties. There's stressors that come with that emotionally. That's stressful. And not only is that stressful, imagine just hearing from your family, from your wife or your parents or your kids telling you, Daddy, you weren't there. Or your wife telling you, hey, you disappointed the kids yet once again. And compound that with, sometimes there's alcohol. You're trying to relieve some of the stress. And then on top of that, you don't have anybody to talk to. And then on top of that, if you do anything slightly wrong, oh, we're going to put you under investigation. Right. So that's where we're really losing our employees in terms of and please forgive me. I'm sorry to everybody that's here. I'm just driving these last little blocks to where I'm going. But that's just failed leadership, because we're not caring for our people. We're not putting them first. And then, listen, here's the thing. The job is stressful. We are faced with dealing with the worst of humanity in a lot of ways. And so when it's stressful and we're having these very high expectations, it's up to the department to give their employees the resources needed to recharge, to talk about some of these things. Anyway, I can go on and on and on about that. It really just comes down to failed leadership. It's nothing more than failed leadership, because what you miss, and I'll say this and I'll just get off of it because it's very near and dear to me. What you miss is that people are leaving, people don't want to be there, and it's not because the job is so difficult. Because if you had good leadership, good leaders, you will go empty porta potties. You'll go dig ditches. It doesn't matter. Somebody's got to do those jobs, right? So it's not about the work. It's about the leadership that's there, and the failed leadership, which is causing a lot of the stress and a lot of the people to leave, and for the department to not have the resources that they need. So
Love it. And sadly enough, there doesn't seem to be a fix for that. The excuses are, hey, we're short staffed, and that's constantly the communication. And so I want to actually pause and say, hey, welcome in people who are actually sitting in the audience. We are happy to have you here. We thank you for letting us know where you're piping in from with Los Angeles. And want to actually welcome and open that floor. The conversations that we are having are the topics that are in the limelight. I was sharing earlier that my husband is running for Los Angeles County Sheriff. So I'm going to take a minute to thank him. He keeps going off screen and then he comes back on, only because he's trying to get to an event where he's going to be speaking. There is such a need for change within Los Angeles County. And there is such a need for change now. The large workloads, the mandated overtime, and the staffing shortages actually bring up tensions. And then those tensions are even more heightened when people are in contact with people on the street. Hey, let's face it, this is not something that's new. And no one is surprised by some of the things that the headlines that are in the news. And sadly enough, as an officer myself, well, before retiring this past February, it is painstaking for me. It hurts my heart to know that we are not making strides toward even better. Despite what people will say, we still have problems within the law enforcement arena. And internally, we have to take ownership of that. Hey, we can't control what the people in the street are doing, but we can control what we are doing. And someone says from Nebraska, just so you know, Eric, hi and go for it in the campaign. They are actually rooting for you all the way from Nebraska. So we thank you for that. And I'm going to try to get someone that I see in the audience that I really would love to come over to this side of the panel with me. I'm not sure if I can convince that person to do so, but hopefully he will. So I'm going to shoot him a message to see if he would join us in the conversation. So
I just want to say thank you to Nebraska. Yes, I'll take it. I
yes,
appreciate it.
thank you from Nebraska. And we just dropped in the chat. We just dropped in the chat his link. So I'm going to keep shouting him out. And here's why. Of course, you're going to support your family, right? But those large workloads, mandated overtime, staffing shortage, the cool guy stuff we were just talking about, it needs to change. And I know that this man has a heart piece for everybody. It's not a specific group. He just wants to fix the problem. And I don't know a better person who has worked every aspect, literally every aspect of law enforcement. And so you got from the chat, you're sure welcome, sir. So, and thank you to my team for dropping the link. If you can be so kind, read about his platform, share it with others. And if you know people in LA County, remember there are over 45 police departments within Los Angeles, but that is all still within the Los Angeles County. And I cannot say that enough. I have someone that I'm going to bring them over as a panelist, and you might see a familiar face. Let me see if we can actually pull this person over to the panel. And it's someone that I am very happy to see. Oh my gosh. I am so pleased and thrilled to have this person on my platform. I don't even know how this doesn't happen to get on this man's calendar. So I am going to introduce a person who I have a lot of admiration for, who is out there doing the work. And not all heroes wear uniforms or capes, but he wears a cape. And his cape is he gets in the streets and keeps down and quells and stops some of that anger amongst the people on the street. So I have to pause and give a shout out to the one, the only Skipp Townsend, who founded Second Call, which gives people opportunities who have been in the system, who have gone to prison, who have served their time, and some of them we want to still punish. So Skipp, I'm going to give you just a short window if you can. I want you to introduce yourself and thank you for actually coming on. I'm honored to have you on the show.
Thank you, CC. Skipp Townsend, born and raised in South Los Angeles. Spent several years suffering from a disease I didn't know I had, called recidivism. And I'm back and forth in custody. And, eventually I learned at the age of 40 that I needed to be a man. I'll be 62 next week. So, so I'd like to tell people I'll be 22 years old because up to that point, I just experience life through emotions and experience life through my upbringing. And I was taught as a child, somebody hits me, hit them back. And if they're bigger than me, pick up something, knock the dog out of them. And eventually I went to jail for attempted murders because I was supposed to hit them back, right? But anyway, all that's in the past. And now I understand the trauma that is vicarious or the trauma that is unresolved that a lot of people carry with them every day. So I've never met a gang member. I've never met a criminal. I've met children. I've met parents, and some of them are dysfunctional. And what Second Call does is save lives. The life I save may be my own, but by default, if I want to save my life, I have to save the lives of others who are most likely to get into some kind of violent offense based on the fact that they've never dealt with their unresolved trauma. So that's what I
Mhm.
do is I get different groups together. I would never call them gangs, but I get different groups together and we plan a future of how can we deal with unresolved trauma to where I still don't have to like somebody, but I don't have to want to hurt them, or I want to be able to freely go to the market, the store, go to church with my family, wherever it is, and not be a victim or a suspect of any type of violence. So that's my work. That's what I do. And in the streets, they always said when I was a kid, it take one to know one. So that's why I'm effective, because I could recognize pain in people that try to hide it, because for years I hid my pain. So thank you for
Mm.
listening to that. I feel much better now. I can leave, right? I feel good. Thank you for letting me get that off my chest.
We saved, one life saved. And I can just tell you, this man is being very modest, very, very modest, because he's out there doing on that other side of the coin what we have 62 between my husband and I, what we've been doing for many years, but he's in the grind. Like, hey, there's something better. We don't have to keep having these problems. We can solve them. And just think about it, if he's solving those problems, that's crime reduction in itself from a different
Yeah,
angle. So, go ahead.
absolutely. Let me say this, and I want to say this because I recently saw um, the sheriff take credit for some things that he had no business taking credit for.
Mm,
What people don't realize is some of the things that Second Call and some of the contracts that Skipp holds are at some of the key areas within Los Angeles, Leimert Park, the Metro Rail, the ambassadors. And the one thing you can't count is the statistic that never happened. So Skipp is out there and his team,
come on.
his big team, the schools. He's in a lot of the various schools. He's in our detention facilities. So when something happens in the street, and I just want to say this, and I hope it's okay for Skipp for me to say this, when something happens in the streets, he knows about it like in real time, and he and his team are out there helping to quell the anger and quell the violence. So what happens is it reduces further shootings, it reduces further crime, it reduces further more lives lost. And guess what? Those they don't become statistics. So you really can't count them. So you really can't measure them, but it's measurable and it's noticeable. And so I just want to say um, Skipp is and Skipp is amazing. What he does is amazing. But I also want to say this because we've been talking about, cool cop stuff, ego stuff.
Hmm.
And Skipp can probably speak to this a little bit more. But I can probably I feel comfortable saying that several years ago, and maybe even now, who he is and what he does was not well received.
Ooh.
I remember going to briefings as a young officer, young deputy, and people talking about interventionists and being out there in the streets. And they ain't nothing but a bunch of thugs themselves. Why should they be able to come in? Why should they, and it goes back to what I said earlier, Cece. We're people.
Yeah.
Just be a person. I love what Skipp just said. I never met a thug. I never met a gangster. I met a son. I met a child. I met a family member. I met a brother, a sister, and that's the only way that we're going to really make this thing better. Is number one, get rid of the us versus them. Number two, collaborating, bringing in those people like that. And so, Skipp, I just wanted to throw that in at you, and thank you for everything that you do.
Yes, sir.
And
Thank you.
even in the chat, I've got a great to meet you, Skipp. So I have someone shouting you out in the chat to let you know
Yes, indeed.
that they appreciate you as well. But I'll add to
Can I
our
just say this? Can I just say
challenges.
this real quick? I mean, I
Yes,
just
go
want to
ahead.
say, can we just? I know it's going to keep going back and forth to whoever's speaking, but can we just
Yes.
see Skipp for a moment and see how he's glowing? Just look at his aura. Just see how he's
Let's
glowing.
look at this to see how he's going.
Can I share with you guys something? While you're
Yes,
talking, I have
yes.
about 30 individuals, all Hispanic from different neighborhoods in the back talking. I really want to walk back there and show you guys, but I feel like would that be right or wrong? So I'm glowing because as we speak,
Skip,
right.
Skip, this is
Yeah.
Code 3
Okay,
Conversations.
code
Go
three.
do
It
We're
it.
is
gonna go code
about
three
Go
to the
do it.
back.
bringing
We can go
all
code
of
three
it,
to the back.
bringing the reality. It's not a stiff podcast. No,
Okay.
this is a community
So
cast. So
So I'm gonna go to the back. I'm gonna go to the
I
back
love it.
where
I love
individuals
it.
are, and
I love it.
it makes me glow. Thank you for saying that, Eric, because it makes me glow when I'm able to open the gates and people are, and this is the same place that was a juvenile courthouse that used to give people life sentences. Well, now we're giving them life to be able to live. And
Amen.
let me
I love it. I
I
love
don't
it.
know how well you can see, but they're all got on orange jumpsuits, and maybe it's three blacks back there. I don't know if y'all can see. I'm gonna get
hmm
closer, walk up on them. Can y'all see the people in the back shaking hands, um, with each other? Can
Love
y'all see
it.
Right.
that? Yeah, y'all see that?
Absolutely love
We
it.
have to stop
And look at
talking
him.
so
This is
that
an
your
old dude
camera
right
stays
here.
on.
That's an
Yeah.
older guy right there, and there's another older guy. You know what I mean? Did you? You old? You old? Aren't you old? You're not old? I'm not one of the old guys. Oh, he's an old guy. I ain't up there though. Yeah, but I just wanted y'all to see that there are people back here um, getting along, no matter where they from. They back here getting along. So this is the work, and that's why I'm glowing. And then I got my young boy. You guys might recognize this one right here. I'm gonna send him home right after this. But that's Eric and CC Strong. Um, y'all remember Dro, right? Right.
Yeah.
So
What's
yeah,
up,
he
Dude,
bro?
has
good
a
to
problem
see
going
you.
home. When he sees me doing stuff like this, he stays around. But after he talks to everybody, I make sure he goes home. But
Thank you,
that's what
Skip.
makes me glow is when people come together and start fellowshipping and start working with each other. Because this is what really happens to save lives. This is something that law enforcement just can't do. So I'm not saying law
Absolutely.
enforcement isn't needed. They are definitely needed. We need to solve some of these homicides. We need, if there's ever an active shooter, I wouldn't want one of my guys in there. So there's definitely a need for law enforcement, but it's not to bring people together. It just, those are social workers and Skip Townsend that do that. So
Skip, can I ask you to do me a favor because
yes,
this is a nationwide podcast. So there's
okay.
Yes.
people on here that aren't familiar with LA. Tell them what neighborhood you're in and the people that you're bringing together for that are speaking peacefully. And I mean, and I know you said about 30 Latinos, but speak too about those red and those blue people.
And I
Right.
want to, before you answer that, Skip, someone in the chat is asking about the Northern Lights. And can you get them on camera? Are you able to see the Northern Lights from where you are?
Oh,
I
is that wrong?
It's two.
Yeah, I don't
probably
know how to
two.
do that. I don't know how to do that. I wish I knew how to do that. I wish I knew
I
how to.
love it. I
Yeah,
love it.
okay.
So to the person in the audience asking that, he says, "Hey, I wish I knew how to do it." So okay, in answer to Eric's question, Skip, he was asking about where you are and
Just
what
tell us where
impact
you
you
are.
had.
Yeah.
Right now, I am at. It's called Chuco's, and it is a alternative high school. But there's about 7 or 8 organizations that utilize the space, and we're one of them. I utilize it for meetings, and the individuals who are here meeting tonight come from different Latino communities. The guy that I kept saying was an older guy. He's actually 46, much younger than me. However, they come from an area where Nipsey Hussle came from, which Slauson and Crenshaw. I hate to say rolling 60s, but that's how they identify. But the Latinos here, we're in the Florence neighborhood, Florence 13, F13. And in 2019, I was able to bring the Florence 13 and the East Coast Crips here. They have been at war for about 23 years. And it stopped simply by putting the phone on the table, and a guy who was in prison said Estuvo. Didn't argue,
Mm,
didn't fuss. He said Estuvo, and everybody put their head down and said Estuvo. So from 2019 to present day, there were 2 shootings and no homicides. And each person who was responsible for the shooting, admitted that that was their fault. One was a young Latino guy, got shot in the stomach, and he said that, hey, I started it. And then there was a
Mm.
young black guy who they took his bicycle and he said he shot up the house behind that. So I mean that type of honesty we just don't get where the guys say, you know what, I messed it up, and now since then there's been no mess ups. The guys here right now come from different Latino areas, Harpies, 18th Street, Rockwood, Temple, um, and Temple and Echo Park don't get along, but they're here now. So it's just
Mm.
oh, Florencia's 18 don't get along, but they're here now, and yeah. So
And this is real in the moment,
in the
able to
moment,
see it and you showing it to us. And I'm going to just go back to the power of that 2019 and you actually bringing a bunch of people together and
hmm
having them start to understand that they didn't have to hate each other and you
no, so
quelling
no,
those waters.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to say that I do more than I do. I've learned to bring them together and let them talk organically. I
Got
always
it.
thought, and I'm gonna tell you, I learned from a guy who's facing a RICO act right now. A guy named Big U. We brought the Rollins when Nipsey died. We brought the Rolling 60s and the Rolling 40s to the table. So I brought the Rolling 40 Crips in there, and they had been at war for 8 years with the Rolling 60s, and
Mhm.
it was no fighting at all. They had their initial fight that learned that turned into homicides, and that's all they had was homicides after that. No fighting. They didn't meet up and fight. They just straight started shooting each other. So when I brought them
Mm.
together, I'm nervous. I'm shaking like a heroin addict, right? And when Big U came in, he sat down and started telling me his leg was broken. So I said, man, you better get up and go over there and talk to them. And he said, Skip, they're talking already. We don't have to say anything. Just let them keep talking. And they did keep talking. And that was something that was the day, 2 days after Nipsey was killed, which was
Mm.
2019 as well. And from there, it's just been skyrocketing. And they've never had another shooting from 2019. And I did not tell them that you need to do this and you got to. The same thing with the Rolling 60s and the Inglewood families. So of course I'll never get credit for that, but they're not at war anymore. Of course, the mayor of Inglewood is gonna, cite that he has detectives working overtime. But I actually took them to Joey's restaurant in Manhattan Beach, and it cost me about $286 to stop the homicides that was going from Inglewood to Los Angeles to Inglewood.
Mm.
And I learned my lesson. I just let them sit down and eat, and I said, "Don't worry, I'm paying for it." And that was the end of that. And they have not been at war since. They don't like each other. They do not like each other, but they're not
Got it.
killing each other. That's the key.
Amazing,
So,
amazing. And
so
let me
me
just say
me
this because you
rephrasing
said
that,
it,
not a
you know,
dislike of each
right.
other, not them liking each other, but you bringing them into the same space and
Yeah.
then actually having a mindset shift. I love it.
Yeah, let me just say this because as you can see, I put my tie on, I put my jacket on. I'm going to have to step out, but thank you, Skip, for coming on tonight. Thank you for the work that you do. And this is something that we're going to collaborate with and keep going when
Yes, indeed.
I am the sheriff of Los Angeles
Yes,
County.
indeed.
I'm
Yes,
going to
indeed.
speak about that right now and get some additional support. So I'm going to sign off. Everybody,
Yeah,
Code3Conversations. Have a wonderful evening.
Yes,
love it.
indeed.
Thank you. And good luck with your speech. I know you're going to be amazing. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
ask Skip to hang on for just a second with me as
Yeah.
Skip, you're still there.
Yeah, I'm still
Um,
here.
I want to make a point with the slide that's on the screen. Large workloads, mandated overtime, staff shortage. That's an internal thing. But just imagine the collaborative effort of Skipp Townsend on the street, reducing some of the need for the officers being on the street. I have to appreciate and I have to acknowledge that, Skip, because other ways of doing things need to be implemented within our ranks. The
Right.
understanding of collaboration is huge. It is huge. And I almost want to say, hey, there's some more bullets there. Community intervention. Intervention that, like Eric was speaking of, people used to say, well, yeah, those people are just like everybody else. That's why the language is understood. But I will give this example. I was able to talk to people because I wasn't immediately rushing in, treating them less than human. And my communication with people goes a long way, much further than brute strength. And I am not Like I can hold my own, pack my mud in a fight, but I am not a big person. I use the gift of my mouth, my communication, and I don't dehumanize people when I'm contacting them. So I'm going to ask you a question, Skip, while I have you here.
Mhm.
What is your opinion, as I'm transitioning to my very last topic? What is your opinion of officers who are the cool guys or overcompensate for toughness? What would be a message that you would give to officers who I say some of us wear the uniform and then some of us are worn by the uniform because it's all we
Right.
know? What would you say to the ones who are worn by the uniform, or what your contact has been if you were telling me, here's CC, this is how we could start to fix in communication?
Right. So first of all, Cece, thank you for having me and asking that question. I saw a young lady, I believe her name was Sheila, asked me about God, and I just want to, before I answer your question, I just have to say that I know that God has provided a path for me. I've been shot at, and off the record, delete this, but I done shot back, so I know that I'm supposed to be either in a prison yard somewhere or dead. But I think that God guided my path, and leaded me in the direction that He wanted me to go in, because I believe I'm supposed to be a tow truck driver. But my experience with the different officers and the deputies who overcompensate, I think that what is taught is to dehumanize the community. So imagine, and in the event that you were still a deputy and you're behind my car, you and another partner, and it come up Code 6 Charles. I don't know what they call it in the sheriff department, but LAPD will say it warrants a Code 6 Charles, right? If you
Mhm,
pull me over and this is coming up as a warrant on this car, armed and dangerous, even though you see that I'm Skip, you still have to direct me, suspect, get out of the car. Suspect, put your hands in the air. Suspect, get on your knees. You have to treat me as if I'm not human. So I would be a suspect until the day that I'm arrested, and now I'm arrestee. And then when I get to the LA County
mhm,
Jail, I'm an inmate. And then when I get to court, I'm a defendant. When do I get to be
mhm,
Yvonne's son? When do you get to say, hey, you know what? I know him. That's Yvonne's son. He got two brothers and he got a gang of kids. I know this one and that one. You can't say that. So what is being taught is to dehumanize the the people that you guys are here to serve. So some of them, some of the deputies, some of the officers understand that they too are people. And they
mhm,
might be a little more forgiving, they might be a little more understanding, but then there are others who come from Simi Valley, they come from Diamond Bar, they come from other areas, and they look in our community in South LA and they say, how can they live like this? Look at how these animals live. Because some of our streets are taken over by homelessness, a lot of trash. Most of the old ladies in the community come out early and pick up the trash, but there's some that have 5 and 6 families, and I'm not against them. 5, 6 families live in one house, but they all get up and go to work. So sometimes the grass isn't cut. Sometimes the trash is left outside. Sometimes the dogs is in the middle of the street. So what happens is it looks like we don't love the community, but there's a survival in this community that doesn't allow us to thrive and hire people to cut the grass and empty the trash and do that because we're all surviving. So when individuals come and they at roll call and when they leave about to get in the car and they high five, come on, let's go kick some ass. Whose ass are you gonna kick? It's me or my children. They're coming to kick ass because they don't look at it as being something of value. So I think that's what the problem is how can, and then some of them, I just got to be honest, some of them wife is cheating on them. They know them kids ain't theirs. Things are going on at
oh,
home. That's why they drinking and smoking and things of that nature to get past the trauma themselves. So what do? Well, hurt people hurt people. So if I'm hurt and I
mhm.
have the opportunity to hurt someone, then that's what I'm going to do. And that's as a deputy or a police officer or whatever field I'm in. If I can't love myself, there's no way I'm gonna love you. If I see all the
I
hurt
love
and pain
that.
that I'm suffering through, and now I'm a police officer or a sheriff deputy, I don't love myself, so I cannot love you or the community I'm working in because I see you as less than.
And I love what you said. And I can tell you when you were correcting me earlier and said, no, I didn't I wasn't able to make them like each other. I'm going to tell you that having been a drill instructor on campus for 5 years, they're not taught that. They are
Okay.
not taught it, but I can tell you where it comes from. A lot of times they are all ready to go and ready to learn, and they're learning all about integrity, courage, respect for people. They're taught the laws that they're supposed to know. What happens is a lot of them get in the car for the first time with their training officer. And like training day didn't with, Denzel Washington and that whole thing. There was consultants on that film. Some of them are jaded, they're salty, they're bitter, and now they're recreating themselves in another human being.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
need to step up. We were talking earlier before you came on about a guy who was a drill instructor with me who was using Gatorade colors to tell the recruits whoever could pick his flavor. True story. Whoever could pick the flavor that he liked, then he would actually put a word in for them to go to the station that he actually worked. I'm not making this
Mm.
up. Very much ego
That's
driven,
crazy.
very much the uniform wearing him. But like the last topic, locker room versus external conversations, I can truthfully tell you what you hear in the media compared to what is really happening behind the scenes, it's a lot of fluff. A whole lot of things
Mm.
from the podium, caring about the deputies, their wellness. And you said it best. Some of them have so many household challenges themselves because at the end of the day, we're all human, that they put the pressure back and they release it in the wrong places. Some of them are fearful. Some of them are wanting to belong and seeking that same thing that gangsters seek, they're looking for a family.
Right.
There is the belief that it's like they want to be in a gang because there's no father in the home, or the commonalities. But here's the problem: you're trying to be a gunslinger because you probably have never had that excitement in your life. You grew up in an area where you never saw anything, so now I have the ability to have an authority. Or I was bullied as a kid, and now the
Right.
bullied gets to actually push the narrative of the authority.
Right.
I cannot I cannot say enough about the work that you are doing in the street, Skip. I honor it because I believe that none of us are getting out of this life thing alive. And the mark that we leave while we're here is huge, and it says a whole lot about us as human beings. Your work there, and I know you've got to get back to it because you have a group of people there and you're working with them. But for you to actually come on and give us some of your take, some of your ideas, this is phenomenal. It is actually really, really a good thing. And I'm so grateful to have you here. So, um, parting words. You got anything for us? Anything that
Yeah.
you want to say?
Yes, it was something that just came up in a meeting that I was in that even though at Second Call we work with all the children in juvenile hall, we work with them in the school systems, we work with them in the park, as you mentioned, Lamert Park and other places. But what happens is if we have them 4 to 6 hours a day and
Mm.
we take them home to a household that doesn't support the change that we're working on, it's like taking a bath and putting on the same dirty clothes. Because now we're putting them back in the situation, put on these dirty socks again, these dirty drawers, and I'll see you tomorrow. But
Mm.
what happens is when they're at the house and they're learning things that the parents aren't supporting that we do, and now the next morning they come out to the bus stop and there's two group of people that want to know who they are and where they're from. So the people who from other schools or other neighborhoods will pull up and say, "Where you from?" And then as soon as they let that fear go, now here comes a patrol car, whether it's deputies or police officers saying the same thing. Show me your tattoos. Where you from? What you got in your pocket? So
Mm.
as much as we work with them, we have to change the environment that we're putting them in. And as much as we work with the young people, we also have to change the narrative, the perception that society has on our young people because they continuously call them gang members, thugs, and criminals. But each and every day when I'm working, I've met someone's son, someone's daughter, someone's child. Sometimes I meet the parents. I'm meeting, the parents of someone. So I never want to categorize someone as a criminal because they were arrested or as a gang member because they're in the community with people they grew up with. And that the narrative that okay they're joining the gang. No, I'm waking up and going to school with my friends. I'm coming back from school with my friends and one of them fights, I have to fight too. So it's not that they're going somewhere looking like, oh, I want to be a part of that gang. They're waking up in their grandmama's house who's been there 30, 40 years. They're already indoctrinated into that community. It's not as if they're catching a bus to go somewhere and they're traveling to be a part of something. It's all they
I
have to
love your
do is
take on
walk
that.
down the street, go to school, go to the park, and they're a part of it. Now granted, some people, the mother and father moved away and they like it at their grandmama house, or vice versa. They go live
Mhm.
with their grandmama, but like, nah, I'm going back to where I was raised with my mama. So sometimes that happens, but it's not always the case. It's just simply waking up in that community every day and gravitating to the foolishness that's going on. So those are
Absolutely.
my
And
parting words.
oh no, I love it. I actually do. And you have proven beyond measure that we can do better. The space is there. We can make it better. And I have to give a shout out to the officers, many of them who are not a part of. We were talking earlier when we first opened the conversation about the Sonia Massey case. Here's a woman in her kitchen
Mhm.
and she's holding a pot and she
Yes.
says, I rebuke you, Satan, or whatever her statement was. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But you have someone who literally in their mind is justifying that that was okay. And before
Right.
that verdict even came out, I was looking at the video and I'm like, that's crazy. Having been a fourth instructor myself, certified internally, and knowing what we can and cannot do, there was nothing that was good about what happened with that case. Nothing at all. And
Right.
the internal conversations and the internal taking ownership for your own behavior doesn't just start with the ownership of those that are, like you say, waking up in the neighborhoods they grew up in. That ownership on our end is like, because Eric says it best, we're the paid professionals. The people in the street are not paid professionals. The onus is on us to make sure that we are doing the job the way that we are supposed to do it. And I am honestly tickled pink to have you come and join the Code 3 conversations. And I know that continued conversations are the only way that we get through our last locker room versus
All right. Well, I
internal.
appreciate it.
Yes, yes.
I
Our last,
appreciate it, and I would like to be on one day. I
yes,
appreciate the moment of joining right now while I'm in the. But I would like to be on the show one day and listen to the conversation because I want to know from both sides. I'm a forever student. I never feel like I'm that instructor or that professor or whatever. I'm forever learning. So I would like to learn and hear from other deputies and other officers from places.
absolutely. And we've had some come on. And the interesting thing, Skip, is that I've had more reception and more conversation with community members than with the law enforcement officers. And I'll tell you why I think that is. I've never had a fear of communicating with anyone, but I think the reality of either owning it and knowing that there's a problem, but having to admit it is a problem for some officers. And then some of them are fearful of they won't know what to say. They're not ready to have those conversations
Right.
or to somehow make it look bad where officers are concerned. They don't want to have those conversations. Eric brought up on one conversation about the need for us to take ownership and where the problems lie. The the community doesn't get to hear about the good officers that are out there. The only thing that they ever see are the bad. And it could be a very small
Right.
percentage, which seriously there are. There percentage that are out
Right.
there doing the damage, and you can probably rattle off some names of people that you've had interactions with, and the people on the street know exactly who those people are. And that becomes a danger to us all. They are the actual danger to us. If they are making us out to be, now everything about a cop is bad. You go to a doctor and they botch a surgery, you're not going to stop going to doctors. You have something that you have to retain a lawyer for. You're not going to stop dealing with lawyers. But for us, all of us wearing uniform are the same. And then thank you so much. I had someone saying that they're going to check out the Northern Lights, and you're making me want to go see these Northern Lights because I don't know if I can see them from any and everywhere. But even Eric was like, I want to see the Northern Lights too. I've been reading about people trying to actually look and see these Northern Lights. Um, and so, Skip, thank you, thank you, thank you. I so
Thank you.
appreciate you being here. I welcome you back. I want to get on your calendar so that you can come and start off the communication with us. For those of you who are watching this later in a recording, we are not doing the fourth Wednesday of this month, which will be the day before Thanksgiving. And I don't think people really want to actually have these conversations because you're probably going to have similar ones at the dinner table for your own Thanksgiving. On the flip side of that, we will be back on December, the second day in December will be December the 10th. So we will be back here, same channel, 6 p.m. PST, and we would welcome you joining us and being part of this continuing conversation. I want to give an actual shout out to Eric. We're hoping that he's on the stage right now, speaking into the people. Strong, the number 4 sheriff. Please go to his website, check him out. Make sure that you vote if you are within LA County. And if you don't know, I keep saying this, everybody in LA County who can vote for Eric Strong. Not your own PD. And if you live in Pasadena or Culver City and all these places that still have their own chief, yes, you still are an LA County resident and you can vote for him. And it's also a full circle moment because when he ran the last time, I was politically targeted. And thankfully in April, I was able to win the internal arbitration, showing that my contractual rights were violated and that I was disciplined without just cause. So this full circle moment is that he is running again on the next ballot, and I welcome him doing so. So in the interest of our Northern Lights, we're going to allow people to actually enjoy the rest of their evening. And I want to invite you to connect with me. I'm on all of the social media platforms, CC Strong, all the way across the board. Please connect with me. I would love to have that conversation with you. Would love to talk with you and chat. And make sure that you tap in to the Code 3 Conversations. We're going to give you back 15 minutes of your time. And thank you so much for joining the Code 3 Conversations. Shout out to Skipp Townsend of Second Call. You are so appreciated, and we support you in what you're doing on the streets to help quell the noise from the other side. So I thank you so much for all of your life's work, and we all will see you on the next video. Have an amazing night and be sure to tap in to ccstrong.com. We'll see you again on the 10th of December. Take care.